Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Ben, welcome aboard the Bonnie Rackham. We are now on to episode 2 of season 3. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get straight into this fantastic action-packed episode.
Get us underway.
Okay, as always, we'll start with a little title. One of those titles that just picks itself. I have decided to call this episode The Eye of the Storm. Of course, we have the literal storm our Walrus crew are deliberately heading into under Flint's orders. But with our two new players, Teach and Woods Rogers, we get our first real good look into their eyes and the storm they're bringing to the show, to the other characters with their presence. So yeah, let's get a brief summary and I'll reveal my rating.
First item.
Okay, so this one is written by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Brad Caleb Kane. It seems for a little while now it's been at least one of these two involved in the writing. And this one is directed by Lucas Etlin, who directed the fantastic episode 9 of last season. So we got a brief introduction last episode to our two new big players. But this episode, we really get some juicy background and our first real good look into these guys. Woods Rogers is wary of Eleanor and where her loyalties lie, with the tease that maybe he is keeping his own cards close to his chest. While on Nassau, Edward Teach reunites with his old friend Vane and isn't too impressed with what he sees around him. Discussions on what's next for the fort continues and tensions fray a little bit amongst Jack and Max, as it's made clear big changes are soon going to be afoot. Walrus crew continue as they left off and chase a storm to lose Hornigold's pursuit. Wills are tested as the water crashes all around them. We get a lot of great information this episode. The Walrus action definitely gives that score up a bit higher than I think I would otherwise, but I'm going to give this a really strong 9.4 rating, shooting it up to a very high place in my rankings. So yeah, let's get into these character discussions.
Next item.
Okay, so yeah, today let's start with Eleanor and Woods Rogers. So mostly Eleanor and Woods Rogers stuff is just him kind of feeling her out a little bit. He's clearly unsure of her loyalties as it stands. We start off as well with a brief little introduction to a new character called Mrs. Hudson. She's sort of Woods Rogers' maid, chambermaid, something like that. It's not the warmest of meetings, introductions between her and Eleanor. An odd position for Mrs. Hudson to be in as a maid, she sort of says to a lady that's just fresh out of jail. We'll see there's a lot more going on with Mrs. Hudson as the story progresses. And yeah, there's a lot more going on than it seems, and she's sort of having to play her own game as well. So we'll return to her in a bit more detail in a later date. So yeah, Woods Rogers brings Eleanor out on deck and shows her his fleet. It's impressive and it's scary. He's got a lot of firepower behind him. As a viewer, I feel by this point at least the majority of us are Team Pirate, and we see here the sheer arsenal. Come on, Arsenal. No, we see here the sheer arsenal our guys could be facing with what this guy has available to him. He informs Eleanor all this is on loan to him. He has a lot of funding behind him to support his endeavour. So yeah, he's got the backing, he's got the support. He points out a few ships, big warships, discusses how vital they are to his plans, and he points one out and says he doesn't really need this one, but he brought it along anyway. And then his tone and his body language, it sort of shifts. He's been almost like a sort of polite, informative guide until this point to us and to her. But he shifts and he sort of warns Eleanor. The moment that she seemed unnecessary or he thinks that she's playing him, he'll send her back to England to the noose on that very ship. To be fair to Eleanor, she doesn't balk. She makes the point that he needs her just as much as she needs him. Says he doesn't know the ins and outs, the secrets, how things work, who's who, just all the ins and outs that make Nassau kind of tick and work. She says to slay Nassau, you must know her. He talks about the rules of the game. If this is the rules of the game we're playing, let me make it clear. And yeah, this comes up a lot with Woods Rogers. There's this idea of, politics and power plays being brought up as a game. Games and rules. You don't see or suspect it quite so loudly first watch, but despite a certain charm on the surface, I think that true face of his is already, more visible than I remembered. And he basically says, yeah, if she lies or tries to manipulate, she dies. So yeah, a scene a little bit later between them. They're in his cabin now. I love this transition that we get a storm in a teacup, literally, because this is coming straight after one of those great scenes on the sea with Flint and the crew. Yeah, just a really good little bit of symbolism there in this one. They're obviously they're on the seas at this point, travelling to Nassau from England. So yeah, so this scene is where we learn a little bit more about Teach and his history with Nassau and Eleanor and Vane. So yeah, at 17, when she was given control of running Nassau, to gain the respect of the men, she banished the most renowned, feared pirate at the time, which was Teach. We now know Woodes Rogers knows that name, you know, and he does react to that information, but of course he's given nothing away here. But yeah, obviously we know a big history there. So yeah, we learn that she worked with Hornigold to betray Teach. They were tight, him and Hornigold, which is true to real life, I do believe, if I remember. Yeah, it's how Hornigold ended up with the fort, you know, that's the promise she gave him. She isolated Teach from all his former allies one by one, you know, bit by bit, until it was just him and his former protege, Charles Vane. We all know where this is going, and I think Woodes Rogers can kind of work it out. It's interesting to note, you know, he's had a scribe taking down their conversation until this point, but it's at this point that he asks him to leave, you know, quite rudely. You know, the narrative not suiting Woodes Rogers at the moment. He doesn't want this written down, and this is going to be a very kind of important point with him, you know, we're learning later episodes. So yeah, you know, the clues are already there of this guy's true face, what he's really about. So yeah, we learn Vane turned on his mentor because he loved Eleanor, and Teach had no choice but to leave, and we'll get to hear Teach's side of that in a bit as well. So yeah, her credibility, it rose on the island after that, and yeah, Captain Woodes Rogers asked directly, why would Vane side with her even though, you know, he knows the answer? And she directly answers, we were fucking. He's not impressed, is seeing Eleanor sort of for what she's doing. Of course there is more to it than a lover's tiff, but I can understand how he thinks, and she is. He's messing, you know, she's messing him about a bit. She re-points out that he needs her as a guide, and she drops Flint's name. You know, she says he's dangerous, but he can be reasoned with. Yeah, about that. Good luck with that. Yeah, and she says Rackham is devious, but all he cares about is his legacy. So, you know, going by these name drops, these certain name drops, I think their partnership compact is known quite well now outside of Nassau. So yeah, so either Woodes Rogers has filled her all in on it all off screen, or news has sort of got to her somehow. It would seem she knows about the gold and that the three of them are working together. Max's name hasn't come up yet, which is interesting. Yeah, she would be a name that, you know, would very likely have come up in that, but yeah, Eleanor's keeping strum about Max for now. But yeah, it would seem Eleanor's pretty much ready to throw everyone under the bus or the boat for her own survival. And ultimately, you know, this turn for vengeance against Charles Vane, who she says she knows most of all. She says she underestimated him and he killed her father for it. And she asks Woodes Rogers, what will you have Vane take from you? And yeah, he asks, why in God's name would I trust you? And yeah, Eleanor is just so blinded and foolish for revenge right now. She cannot see the irony or, you know, the foreshadowing in her own next statement, because she says that she's obligated to see that it's monsters driven out. You don't have to trust me, but we have a mutual self-interest, and that makes us better partners. In thinking of the monster, you know, she's trying to drive out or slay, she is completely oblivious to the one that is now standing beside her, that she's inviting in, the one she's kind of given a detailed guide by guide, step by step. Of course, things are going to change between these two soon, and sparks are going to fly. Yeah, and it's actually going to be quite interesting to look a little bit deeper into it, because I'll confess, I'm not so into their romantic angle. You know, it is a bit of a tune out for me in Watch's past. I know he's not all bad when it comes to his treatment of her in that kind of general sense. And there is definitely something there between them for them both. But this man is just always wearing a mask to me. And yeah, like I think I said last episode, we won't see his real true face for a while, but we're getting plenty of teasers and moments throughout that there's a little bit more to this guy that we haven't seen yet, that we don't know, and like this last little scene with them to discuss. So we meet Captain Woodes Rogers' right-hand man, Captain Chamberlain. Shock horror, I hate him. I cannot stand pompous, authoritative arseholes, and yeah, this guy got the memo. But to be fair, he's not an arse kisser by any means. Another person who maybe doesn't truly know who Woods Rogers is. He's not too keen on relying on Eleanor for this plan going forwards, that's fair. But Woods Rogers says he knows what he's doing. Chamberlain mentions that he read Woods Rogers' memoir, but he's heard things, details and rash decisions, scars left out of the account. We focus in at this point on the scars in Woods Rogers' face. A really great bit of camera work as that kind of focuses in. And he asks him smugly, were you so confident then as you are now? And Woods Rogers, he says nothing but just glares at him. We won't get into all that now, but of course with Eleanor's early reveal about Teach, like I say, we know there's some big history between him and Teach, also connected to his facial scars. But yeah, this scene is near the end of the episode. So yeah, this is Hornigold and Dufresne come on board, and it's confirmed, if we didn't already know or hadn't worked out, that they're all in cahoots. Straight away, Hornigold can't mind his business. He knows Eleanor's there and he's on her ass. He knows he's taken her on. Yeah, this man is so petty. He warns him against her, says not to trust her. At this point, Eleanor comes out, on deck, and they share a frosty little look towards each other. But yeah, Woods Rogers says he doesn't trust her, but he doesn't trust him much either. So, he says they can be a check on each other, and he'll count himself fortunate. Fair play. Put him in his place a bit. And it's at this point, all the, to discuss in this episode, high seas action has happened, and Hornigold has come across Flint's flag and fell for the bait, and he confirms him as dead. So yeah, I think I've given Eleanor and Woods Rogers some fair time and chatted over all I wanted to with them. We get some background. We're just seeing a little bit more of Woods Rogers. He's still a bit of a mystery, and he does come across a little bit likeable, because I think a lot of people really aren't keen on Eleanor at this point, and that's maybe what blinded, I think, a lot of us first watch through. But you can see it. You can definitely see all is not what it seems with him. There's some things being hidden here. So yeah, let's move on to Nassau now with my favourite little trio first, and then we'll chat about Vane and Teach, and Jack will sort of pop up a little bit in both discussions. A little swig of my too big for my head cup. I'm trying to drink more water daily, and unfortunately, not a big enough cup to get the job done. Sorry, Anne. Right. Okay, so yeah, we sort of continue with Jack as we left him last episode. Just another scene showing Jack just has people walking all over him in regards of the money, even when they're not the smartest tool in the shed, like this guy we see. He's just got no authority or respect at the moment, it would seem, but he doesn't, on the surface, seem like he's bothered about it really either. He's very nonchalant about it. One of his crew has lost a lot of money just carelessly, and he just wants it replaced, so he can gamble or whatever's going on. And even though it is Featherstone that's doing the negotiations and agrees to give him the same amount after a bit of funny back and forth, Jack is present, and he doesn't contradict or try and threaten the guy. Thankfully, Jack is going to get a couple of reality checks and a bit of a kick up the backside this episode to get him out that funk a little bit. His first comes at the hand of Max. Despite not being the best of chums, she's come herself to try and talk a little bit of urgency into him and introduce him to her suggestion. So yeah, a great Max and Jack scene. I really like this one. She produces a bag of coins and one single pearl. Both, she says, have the same value, but a considerable size difference in volume. And Jack sort of knows a nag is coming, and he's just, he doesn't really want to hear it, and just, sort of brushes it off and says he's seeing to it. And Max re-emphasises her worries about the gold. Knows the main bulk of it might not be there for much longer. Suggests they trade their shares, the three of them, for pearls and other smaller items of value. She's talking sense, says it ensures money is set aside for their futures. Again, Max just has a sense that something's about to happen, that changes are coming, and Jack asks whose futures. She says hers and Anne's, and Jack doesn't let her finish. Of course, he's still feeling some kind of way, and like he's been discarded by Anne a little bit, which, to be fair to him, he has. And he says sarcastically, lovely, good old Jack gets buried beneath a pile of rubble, while you two begin a well-funded life of leisure. As these episodes start getting more and more intense and a bit darker at times, Jack is just such a much-needed little element in most episodes. They don't overdo it with him. They just give you enough where it's, yeah, you know, where you're like, all right, I can breathe and have a little laugh, you know, for a moment before it all gets intense again. Before we're back deep in the action or, you know, with all the politics again. So yeah, he has a moan. Like I say, he's hardly seen Anne the last few months. She spends a lot of time with Max. As I say, it's a bit awkward with him and Anne at the moment, and he's feeling that jealousy. But when he says, now we're just accepting that if forced to choose between a long future with you and a short one with me, there's no chance she'll even consider the latter. You know, and we get a great shot of Max, almost that sort of hits her a little bit, because she knows the reality here, even if Jack himself has seemingly forgotten how things stand. She says, of course she will choose you. You know, she says it simply, like it's just the most obvious thing in the world. And then she drops him a bit of tea, you know, a bit of truth. She says the fort is going to fall at any time, you know, today, tomorrow, any time. Knows he's not stupid enough to see himself buried underneath it when it happens. Says it will pain Anne to leave her behind. What they shared, it will be hard. But you, without you, there is no her. God damn it, Max, you're breaking my heart, girl. Because she knows it, because she saw it. She saw Anne in that state without Jack. She says she's here in part to secure her own future. She won't deny it. But she's asking for his cooperation for the love they share for Anne. Max says we both love her. You know, first time she said the L word in relation to Anne out loud. Great scene. I 100% believe her. No one will ever convince me otherwise. More importantly, I think Jack believes her here. I think he can see that she's being genuine, that she's concerned, and she's just speaking from the heart, just in terms of Anne and the situation. I know Max is tricky, and, you know, some people don't ever trust her, so therefore I don't think they're keen on her. Yeah, for me, there's just no angle she's working here at the moment. I know she will, and she's going to get sneaky again, and she is going to betray them all. But right here, right now, what she's feeling, this is real, this is hurting her, but she's being a realist. Maybe the realist and most vulnerable that she's been since those early couple of episodes. We'll, of course, learn next episode a little bit more, and again, more heartache, you know, in terms of Max. The reason as to why she would want to stay if she knows shit's about to hit the fan and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, obviously we can get more into that next episode. But yeah, let's hop forward in time in the episode a little bit and chat the Max and Anne scene quick, because it's sort of all tied into the same discussion. So yeah, due to Max's chat and a bit of influence and inspiration from Teach, I'll go over that scene when discussing him and Vane. Jack finally gets his arse in gear a bit. So, you know, it's a bit later, he's chatting to Max in Anne's presence, and he gives the go-ahead for the trade. He knows it makes sense now to do this exchange and save some money for the three of their futures. Because, like it or not, he can't guarantee the fort won't be breached. Bit of a tense look between Max and Anne. Obviously, this confirms to Anne that Max went behind her back to speak to Jack alone. And Jack, you know, says that he doesn't like the way it looks, them scurrying about and stashing things away in secret like rodents preparing for the winter. Such a way with words. But it's also a nice little bit of foreshadowing for a friend Jack will make in a few episodes. And he doesn't want Flint or Vane finding out about it. So yeah, I think to be fair to him, you know, I've given him a little bit of a harder time these last couple of episodes. He is a loyal man, Jack, at the end of the day. And Vane especially, I think a bond he's, you know, been quite thankful to have built back up since obviously all that went down in the first season. And Max says sort of in relation to Anne, you know, they've both spoke about what happens when England returns, how she must stay, and Anne, she doesn't want to hear it. Yeah, it seems this is a tough conversation. Max has maybe tried to get really into her a few times, but knowing it sort of means they're parting, Anne just hasn't wanted to get into it. You know, she loves her as well, and she doesn't want to think too far ahead. Yeah, I think this episode is a really great one to use as evidence that there's really real feelings now involved in terms of Anne and Max. You know, it's love, it is complicated, there is the Jack element. Of course, as Max, you know, sort of said to Jack at the end of the day, if forced to choose, like it seems like it's going to be happening, Anne will choose Jack. But yeah, my heart does break for them this, you know, next couple of episodes for Anne and Max. And Max drops a bit of an honesty bomb, says if we're both honest, we know sooner or later the day is coming where no matter our feelings for each other, the world will demand that they, and you know, she can't finish the sentence, and they kiss. You know, neither of them ready to finish this discussion quite yet. It's a bit frantic and it's passionate, and you know, and I think they both know that deep down it's the beginning of the end for them, or a chapter closing for a while at least, you know, for a long while. It's only a matter of time now, and I think they're just delaying the inevitable here. Okay, so yeah, let's get on to Vane and Teach, and like I say, we will touch back with Jack a little bit. So yeah, our first moment with Vane is a very welcome one, I think, for most viewers, for a lot of viewers. He's mucking in with the slaves, but it's Mr. Scott who says, your presence is confusing them. He gets why he's there helping out, but he says they don't understand, that it sends the wrong message. At first this had me confused why Mr. Scott would, be like this. You'd think Mr. Scott would be, I appreciate that, what a nice gesture. But I think he's taking these guys on board, isn't he? These slaves, he's secretly chatting to them, plotting. I know we've got some stuff coming up with him very soon. Like I said, he's working some sort of angle with these guys, and they're gonna, I think maybe even planning on taking some supplies. He's working something, I think. But yeah, anyway, we'll get into that as it happens. But still pissed off with the situation, Vane disappears and he rages out in the tent a little bit. I think he's feeling a bit useless maybe as well. And then we'll see a sword appear at his neck, through the tent. And yeah, and we see the shadow of Teach. Another great teasing shot of this so far mysterious giant. By this point, we've had the Eleanor scene, so we know their background. So we wonder, how is this going to go? Is he back for revenge? Are they about to fight? Teach says a man puts a dead thing in the ground, he expects him to stay there. Sometimes it comes back. The old friends face each other, and Teach, he makes it clear he felt betrayed and hurt when Vane turned his back on him for Eleanor. You're not sure what's going to happen in this moment. Looks really tense between them, like I say. But Teach brings him in for a big sort of fatherly hug. A surprise to us as much as it seems for Vane. Yeah, a lot of history it would seem between these two. So yeah, we learn a little bit more about the whole situation on why he left. And we learn he's been gone 8 years, which makes Eleanor 25. Finally picked that up. Never really quite knew what age she was meant to be, but finally was able to work that out. He says he's had as many wives in the years that have passed and lots of distractions, but he's never really let Nassau go in his heart. He met wife number 9 recently. Damn, this guy gets about. And yeah, he says he finally started to forget, the familiar smells of the island. And then he learned there were no Guthries in Nassau. And he saw it as a sign to return. And Teach sort of says, one dead, one in chains. And Vane pretty quickly says they're both dead. And he seems convinced of that, or maybe at least trying to convince himself. Teach not quite so sold, it would seem. Again, we know now Woods Rogers, not a stranger to him. Perhaps he also knows or can see that there's still a bit of a candle alight for Eleanor and Vane somewhere, hence him being unconvinced with Vane's dismissal of Eleanor being dead. They chat for a bit, Vane basically saying, can we let bygones be bygones? What happened happened, if he's here to gloat, he doesn't want to hear it. Teach says that his choice was to either walk away or kill Vane for his betrayal, which kills Eleanor's kind of big I am moment earlier on subduing him a little bit. So yeah, it's just confirming here, once upon a time, these guys really, they fought a lot of each other, they meant a lot to each other. So much so in Teach's case, we saw what he did to the 3 brothers-in-law for just kind of disrespecting him for a very good reason, really. But instead of doing something similar with Vane at the time, he just left. So yeah, he clearly holds a lot of respect and love for Vane. Says he's not been sat around expecting or waiting for an apology. So he's ready to move on as well, it would seem, and let the past stay in the past. He spots Flint's warship in the distance and he asks about it. And Vane says it's ours, plural. So don't get any fucking ideas. And he sort of informs him of the compact. And Teach seems a little bit disappointed, which is made a bit clearer why in a moment. I think he can see, as we're sort of reminded of, that Vane has changed a lot, even in the time we, the viewers, have had with him, but especially in the time since Teach has last seen him. He's not lost that ruthlessness, as seen last episode, or his coolness, or just that swagger. But maybe he has lost his edge a little bit, I think is what maybe Teach is saying here. Teach is observing, curious, and he wants to meet his partners. When Jack met Teach. First we see him, Jack is still faffing about a bit, gambling by the looks of it. Obviously this is between the scenes. both the scenes I discussed with Max. Yeah, you know, at this point he is still irritating me a bit. He's still procrastinating. Adele drops 2 bags of coins in front of him. You know, the guy they gave the replacement to, he's lost the second bag again, and she's found the first one. And Adele asks, just how fucking stupid are your men? And Jack sort of just says, it's hard to say. And it's at this point that Vane and Teach enter, and Jack recognises him, welcomes him. But yeah, Teach is not impressed by Jack. He recalls his name, you know, Jack Rackham. And Jack goes, that's my name. You say it enough times, Jack, so, you know, I think you'd know it. But yeah, Teach calls him the scrawny one, trying desperately to join Vane's first crew. So they've sort of met, I think it would seem. Yeah, Teach, he disrespects Jack pretty much right in front of him. You know, he's clearly not impressed with what he's seeing and how it's being run. But I think seeing someone he respects disregard him a little bit, I think that gives Jack the little kick up the arse that he really truly finally needs, along with Max's little talk, and changes him a little bit going forward. Jack, you know, he's sort of explaining how they're running it, Flint on the seas, Vane at the fort, and Teach wants to know why they're all so determined to defend Nassau. I like here how Jack speaks, you know, quite passionately. He name drops Henry Avery, Sam Bellamy, and Hornigold, and Teach himself. I'm rather unimpressed, Teach says, and you think your name belongs on that list. Yes, I understand. Damn, he's not even humouring Jack at all. At this point, 2 sort of random guys enter, and they want to join Teach's crew. They just pretty much ask him, can we join, please? And yeah, Teach is so over this. Clearly thinks it's all gone a bit soft, you know, he's very old school. Says when he was young, men fought each other to join crews of repute. A measure of will. Now it seems they only need say please. He looks to Vane, you know, as he sort of says this. The 2 men disappear, and we soon hear fighting outside, and they sort of continue their conversation. Teach says he sees no hope with Nassau. They have taken away what she once was. He looks to Jack and says, you have given her prosperity. And then he has a great quote, you know, he says, strife is good, it makes a man strong. For if a man is capable of confronting death daily, functioning in the face of it, there's no telling what that man can do. Yeah, wise words, and definitely quote for the episode for me. You know, words I can definitely relate to. He continues, a man whose limits cannot be known is a very hard man to defeat in battle. And yeah, maybe that's the moment Jack realises that what he wants and what has to happen can't coincide at the moment, so he makes his decision. So yeah, Teach continues, and he reads them all to filth a little bit, saying, you know, all he's known has gone to pot, basically. Said he returned because he believed there was something to return to, but they have let themselves get comfortable, let the money make them vulnerable. Speaking to Charles, he says that he wanted him alongside him at the head of a terrible fleet, ruling the seas, but he's unsure if he's still the same ruthless pirate that he once knew. So yeah, Teach has very well and truly shit on Jack's parade a bit here, making them ask some honest questions to themselves. You know, as I say, I think it's subconsciously or not, it impacts Jack immediately, leading to the scene already discussed. Obviously, a little bit more complexity to Vane's situation, and they will get into that a bit more next episode, I believe. But yeah, Teach is seeing here, the gold has subdued them, maybe even made them lose who they are a little bit, with nothing to fight for. What's the point? Where's the test in life? And more importantly, when the real first big test comes along, will they, or Vane, he's speaking to him, you know, more personally, will he still have what it takes to take it on? Yeah, Blackbeard, you know, Teach, a character I grow to love more and more with every watch. He's observant, he's interesting, he's intimidating. And yeah, he's completely made the current situation on Nassau for what it is right now, right away. It's a great first look at Edward Teach, and yeah, he's going to get himself his first MVP nomination. Okay, yeah, that was quite a lot, you know, going on Nassau, but yeah, let's finish off with the Walrus crew, and, you know, Flint and Silver in particular, but a little bit of Billy, and a little bit of Muldoon as well. We'll give him his little R.I.P. moment. So yeah, this is the episode where Flint's dreams and visions of Miranda and death sort of begin. They're shot so well, you know, the framing of Flint, the colour grading, and the slight change and messing with the speed and the time, you know, of it. In this first short one, Miranda climbs on board from the water, you know, she's drenched through, and it's after she's been shot. She's got like a bullet wound in her head. And yeah, you know, clearly now with hindsight, with her being drenched and everything, this is a warning. You know, she's trying to say something, but no audio. You know, it's from Flint's point of view, and we watch her head below deck, and we see Death sort of follow her down, or she follows Death down. I can't remember which way round. But yeah, very similar. You know, this Death version they have, very similar to the one depicted in Max's production last episode, all in black, you know, black mask. And yeah, Flint goes to follow down below, but he's woken from his dream, vision, whatever you want to call it, by Billy. So yeah, while Flint's been dozing, the crew have been preparing for the storm that he's ordering them to go into to lose Hornigold. And we see Hornigold still on his tail, but he's not near them, thankfully. And Groot wants to slow down or turn around or something, but Flint knows that they have to commit. Hornigold has to be convinced that they perished in the storm, you know, as he is by the end of the episode. And Flint asks Billy if he has his cooperation. And Billy, you know, he hesitates. A callback to those very early episodes, you know, an unsure Billy and an overbearing captain. Billy, yeah, he's clearly not completely comfortable with this idea, but he's loyal, and while he's a stronger, braver guy now in terms of standing up for Flint, he also knows this isn't the time, and yeah, he's got to commit to this to the best of his ability, or they're all dead. So yeah, Billy has a little moment with Silver, who is clearly very nervous. You know, we see here a little bit of that guy that we're more used to. A bit of the schemer, you know, he says they should have taken the pardons with no intent to honour it, rather than risk this storm. And yeah, it's a great idea in theory, and yeah, another captain, that would definitely work, but he's still not quite understanding how Flint's mind works. And yeah, though it definitely makes for a safer plan, there's just no way Flint would ever go for something like that. It's just not how he plays his game, you know, and obviously Silver's not quite understood that yet. But yeah, the ship and storm action, you know, and all this is phenomenal this episode. Big sea battles are really great, but this might be some of my favourite ship action scenes in the whole show. So yeah, again, the storm's really starting to kick in, rain's just coming down in lashes, the sea rages, waves are high, just great action. Silver is below deck with Muldoon. I finally thought I should research exactly what this guy's bloody name is. It's not Dooley, it's not Lars, it's Muldoon. So, final fucking answer, Muldoon. Yeah, but it's a shame. I've only learnt it when he's about to die. That seems like a little regular kind of thing here. A little regular theme I have. Muldoon below deck, he's filling in kind of holes in the ship to stop leaking and flooding, because obviously they're going to be all over the place. And yeah, Silver, you know, he's struggling to stay on his feet or foot. And Muldoon, you know, telling Silver here that, you know, he doesn't need to be here. He's sort of trying to help Silver out. The crew owe him a debt, you know, for Charlestown. He says, let us take care of you. And the crew has obviously repeated this sentiment of, let us take care of you, John. You know, let us handle it. They've obviously repeated this a few times throughout the months since. And Silver, he clearly hates it. Says in all the shit we've been through the last few months, you want to know what the most terrifying part of it's all been? We'll take care of you. I'm still not sure, you know, completely from memory why this bothers him so much. Is it pride, the worry of his usefulness? Maybe it's because he is so comfortable now with his crew. He doesn't know or want to know what his limited options would be outside of the crew. Or is it vice versa? And he's got limited options if he does want to get out. I think he does have a discussion like that at some point later in the season, so I'll be able to remind myself a bit then. I know he does, you know, go over it a bit more, I think, with Maddie when we meet her. But yeah, mostly, you know, it just might be pride and just that sense of loss of independence. You know, that might just be the big main kind of bulk of it, but definitely a lot going on there with him. And yeah, Muldoon says he knows how he feels, knows what it feels like to be afraid of being the one that's not strong enough to stick. Yeah, I think maybe he might be speaking in reference to his height and frame, maybe. As a fellow short ass, that's the impression that, you know, I got, and I can understand kind of where he'd be coming from on that. Or maybe he just doesn't feel he's one of the more useful members of the crew. You know, it could be a bit of that as well. But yeah, it's a nice little moment between them, you know, two men bravely sharing their fears and getting into discussions you don't always see two guys, alpha kind of guys, share on screen. So yeah, you know, it's good to see that. So yeah, we're sort of back on deck. We kind of hop and change between what's going on with those two and on deck. And yeah, the group warns Flint that they have to cut down the sails at this point, or they're going to lose the mast, and, you know, it will tip the whole thing over. So yeah, Billy and a few of the crew are bravely up there at the moment. I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do something up there. I'm not completely sure. But some time passes, and yeah, and we see the ship is just struggling to stay upright. Flint's at the wheel, you know, with the boys still on top, still no further along in their progress. And yeah, a huge wave just batters into the ship, and we see it just turn almost sideways in the water, and we just get a great shot from Billy's point of view. Just so close just to falling in, and one guy, you know, he completely gets swept up, sucked into the waves, gone forever. Yeah, but Billy, you know, bless him, he's hanging on, while meanwhile, you know, all the progress Silver and Muldoon made filling out the holes is just destroyed in an instant by water crashing in. And yeah, due to the sudden pressure, a cannon just comes across the way and smashes into Muldoon's legs, trapping him. Great symbolism of what they have just been discussing in regards to Silver and the crew taking care of him because he lost a leg. And now Muldoon's own legs, you know, are trapped. Yeah, poor Billy, yeah, he's hanging on for his life still, and Flint makes the call and he starts hammering at the sails himself. There's a lot of technical kind of jargon going on these scenes, all these scenes discussing, so I'm probably butchering most of that. You know, for time I just don't make a note of all that. But yeah, Billy can only watch as his crewmates, you know, fall deep into the deathly waters and, you know, are sucked up, and must have thought, oh, here we go again. He's obeyed his captain only to be watching him cut the rope from underneath him. Thankfully for us and for Billy, his positioning is still a part of the structure they need, I think, is how he gets away with it. Yeah, and Flint is practically doing every job on deck himself at this point. He's holding on for dear life, he's at the wheel, he's cutting the ropes. Yeah, while Flint is having to make really tough choices above deck, Silver is having to helplessly watch his crewmate, and probably friend by this point now, drown right in front of him. The cannon's just too heavy for either of them to free him. Muldoon's not in the right position, and Silver just can't manage it on his own. The water's rising, you know, his face just keeps sinking under. Muldoon, he knows he's a dead man now, you know, he's given his kind of I'm a dead man kind of speech, and poor Silver is helpless, and it was actually quite emotional watching him struggle this time. He can, yeah, only watch in vain as he tries to keep Muldoon's head up, but yeah, he sadly drowns just right in front of him. So yeah, we're back to the points. Billy is safely down now, and Flint just wants to head further into the storm. Unbelievably, they still haven't quite cleared Hornigold to make it convincing enough. So this is where Flint, he ties himself to the wheel, you know, knowing he's about to get thrown about something terrible. It really is just him on deck now. Captain, you know, really taking the last to go down with his ship seriously. Absolutely amazing scene of Flint fighting the waves, you know, a one-man army. It looks so realistic. It makes my belly drop every time, you know, we do that kind of rise and full shot with the ship. It's just badass. Much more like the Flint I'm willing to give, you know, full credit to for taking charge and handling it like a pro. He's got himself an MVP nomination again. So yeah, we sort of end with that, and we get that great shot of that wave coming in, and then it kind of goes to calm, and then to end, we see Flint's dream with Miranda continue. So we're like, oh god, did he die? Obviously not. But, and yeah, we see his dream with Miranda continue, and they're below deck now in this dreamlike kind of state as before, and she's standing at a table below deck with Death. Yeah, still this eerie colour palette and great framing and camera movement. He slowly approaches, and she's still trying to tell him something. I've tried to lip read her, and I can never quite catch it. Clearly still some sort of warning. You know, we're just looking at Flint staring at Death, and then the camera pans, and we almost get a bit of a jump scare of Miranda just screaming in his face. You know, she's trying to tell him something all along, but he's too busy kind of just staring Death in the face, you know, I think is kind of the symbolism here. Whether it's his subconscious or something a bit more spiritual, however you interpret that as, you know, one thing is clear, yeah, Flint is seeing Death, but Miranda is trying to do all she can to warn him. Yeah, I love these visions. Like I say, something each viewer can take something a little bit different from, get a different interpretation of. You know, I think it's obviously all Flint's subconscious, but yeah, it's really well done. When Flint wakes, it's calm, you know, it's even a little bit sunny. They're through the storm. Yeah, we think, phew, they survived. You know, they lost a few guys, but they made it through. And then it's revealed that they're stranded, becalmed, or in doldrums, as the term goes. Unless a wind returns soon, they are in trouble. The food and the distance to nearest land do not match by a long shot. Yeah, the Walrus crew are not out the woods yet. They're not out the woods by a long bloody shot for a while. But yeah, another big test to come next episode. But yeah, I think that's all the character discussions for this episode. So yeah, let's get into, I think, a much easier and a much more obvious MVP win this episode.
Last item.
Okay, yeah, MVP. So yeah, like I say, a much easier one. I can just get done quickly this week. While I give Teach, I gave him his little nomination to keep it interesting. This isn't even close for me. He's still not doing great. We see he is losing his mind a little bit, drowning in Miranda, as I think he'll say at some point. But for falling Hornigold and just bravely leading the charge while battling, that terrifying and deathly storm and the waves, Flint will get the win and he will pick up his third MVP win. Yeah, just unbelievable gonads of the guy. If he's going to lead his crew into a probable death situation, then he's going to be the one to lead. Yeah, just phenomenal scenes with Flint this episode. Really kind of earning that MVP for me. Okay, yeah, so that's episode 2, guys. I think that's all to be said about it. I really wanted to try and cut these down, as I think I said last season. But even though I am doing it a bit of a different way, there's just so much to discuss. They're so meaty and there's just so much politics and discussions and just action to chat about. So they're still probably going to end up being at least 40 minutes. But I'm trying to whittle my waffling down. But yeah, it's just too good. Alright, thanks everyone for watching as always. Take care, have a good week, and I will see you next episode. Peace out.